various and mighty people across the grand and mighty spectrums of time and indeed the multiverse. I am Alexander Gordon Johans, and I've been thinking about how to make a follow-up to Autistic People Are the Superior Beings for some time. And, you know, I've had a lot of difficulty in terms of subject matter or what have you. And then I read a book. Well, I'm still reading it. I read a chapter in it that's kind of made me realise the angle that I needed to have. Hence the title, Neurotypicals Are the Inferior Beings. I got the title of Autistic People Are the Superior Beings from a t-shirt I had with a sort of a Dalek slogan on it. And I didn't know about kind of the history and things that I'm about to explain to you. For me, Asperger's syndrome, autism has never been something problematic for me, right? In the sense that for me, it has never caused problems, personally, right? What it has done, however, is caused the people around me to not understand. And it has caused me to have misunderstandings with other people because we think differently. And I am calling this Neurotypicals Are the Inferior Beings because autism is a spectrum. And the definition of autism quite literally means, you know, self-orientated, concerned with and of the self. Like, you're just not aware of other people, right? Neurotypical society, human society, is made up of all of these individual people who have all these rules and culture and social etiquette that is unwritten, right? Nobody, when you're in school, hands you a book and says, "Alright class, today we're going to be learning about manners and politeness. Okay, if you'll turn to chapter 1, we'll talk about how to make eye contact and general body language and behaviour." Right? This is stuff that can't be learnt, and in general, I have taught myself it through observation and learning. But the thing is that everybody is different. Every neurotypical person is different. Our brains, our neurotypical brains, are very individual things. All human brains are, right? Like, yes, there is a certain amount of genetically determined stuff that goes into the brain, and yes, there is a certain amount of homogeneity in terms of, like, most brains have certain sections of the brain that are supposed to handle this part or this part or this part of the understanding of the human experience. But other than that basic, you know, this part does X and this part does Y and these genes inform this in X, Y, and Z, we are a product of culture, right? We are a product of how we are brought up. We are a product of our experiences, right? You know, you have a particularly bad experience with someone of a certain demographic, and you don't see that demographic in other ways often, and you're gonna feel negative things towards that demographic because, well, I had the thing with the demographics, I don't like them, right? Humans form behaviors and personality traits because of the things they happen to like, the things that happen to scare them, or that they have problems with, or whatever. And humans are each all unique and self-motivating in their own ways, in the sense that they each have their own essential list of drivers of like things they want to achieve on this day and that day, in this order and that order, and if I can do that, no, I'll do that, and if I do that, and that, and that, and they each, even if you're not interested in politics, you have some kind of political outlook, you have some kind of economic outlook, you have some kind of system of things that you are comfortable with. And there is also this social layer and cultural layer. Like if you're an English person, then there is an English culture that you're a part of. If you're someone from, you know, a poorer community, you've got this kind of, you know, culture and experience that you're a part of. If you're someone who's black, who's of, you know, different kind of descents, then you're living in a predominantly white country, then you're gonna have a different kind of experience to other people who are white. You know, there are all these things that play into it and that alter how we behave. And the thing is, most neurotypical people don't think about any of this stuff, right? Like, they might think, I'm going to think about politics now, and I'm going to argue about politics. Blah. Or they might think, oh yes, that person is being rather rude. Or, you know, you might write an essay on privilege, but you don't think about a lot of this stuff unless it comes up. You do, however, have a kind of instinctual understanding of how you relate to other people, right? You have an instinctual thing of like, I know how that person works, and I know how that person works, and we each have this sense of society and culture of how we are supposed to be in the world, right? As an autistic person, I don't have that, right? I am interested in the things I'm interested in, and I have a sort of conscious understanding of, you know, politics and culture, but social stuff, social etiquette, stuff like that, I have to consciously know, and it's unwritten. So much of this stuff is unwritten, and so much of this stuff, because it's unwritten, is kind of interpreted within the minds of other people who just assume, well, everybody acts like this. And it's like, if you have never, you know, there is this phrase that is used to talk about, you know, privilege, which is, you know, right, the equality feels like oppression to the privileged, to those who were not oppressed, right? And it's a similar kind of thing whereby when you're autistic, you just don't see so much. You're just not aware of so much of this social bollocks that is happening around you. You just, you know, it's like I can't smell. I am very aware that there is this whole sort of culture around me, this entire species that just smells. It smells and accepts that you smell, and that everybody can smell, and it assumes that you can smell, and it makes judgments depending on how you happen to smell, right? Like what odors do you give off? Therefore, I'm thinking this or that, and like odors inform taste in terms of like the foods you eat and stuff are in large part a majority formed of smells. For me, my taste is formed of the tastes on the tongue, which is salt, sweet, bitter, and sort of meat flavour, and the textures of the things I eat, and, you know, the way it looks, right? That's it, you know. Oh, and also, I even people without an olfactory bulb and thus can't smell, they can still get a sensation of mint and of alcohol through direct stimulation. Okay. So this is why, like, I can drink alcohol and mints, and like those are extra sort of things for variety, and why I can be overwhelmed by deodorant and stuff, because of course so many deodorants and perfumes actually have as their base sort of ingredient, as a sort of emulsifier or bonding agent, they have some sort of alcohol or alcohol derivative. So when you spray Lynx in my face, what I'm getting overwhelmingly is alcohol. And like that smell, right? I'm using smell because smell is an obvious kind of disability. Like we understand that if someone is blind, they can't see. We understand that if someone is deaf, they can't hear, right? We can understand if someone has no sense of smell, then they can't detect the odors, they can't, that there is this whole culture around that they can't see. They can't smell, sorry. Mixing my metaphors. Being autistic is lacking the sense of social understanding, right? I have to consciously know what the fuck is going on, right? If there is a person in the room, I have to consciously be aware of, like, you know, how am I looking? How am I sounding? Right? What body language are they giving off? What data is they? You know, it is a conscious thing. So for me, it is all about the data points. You know, am I getting enough data from them? What does the data say? I have to continuously be mining that data and altering my behavior in response. And then on top of it, right, there is all this sort of other societal, social stuff. It's like, I suppose it's like if you have, as a sort of, if you're like blind, you can make yourself read braille, and you can like have an understanding of where to go in the road, because you can, you know, feel the bumps on the ground, and like there are specific ways that you can interpret through touch, right? But at the same time, there is all this stuff going on around you all the time that you're just not aware of. You're just not aware of, because you just have no ability to be aware of it. And then very occasionally, it suddenly impacts upon you in a way that you can detect. And that's kind of what it's like being autistic, right? In that there is this whole sensory world that is going on around you of social interaction, all this data flowing back and forth of body language and culture and expectation, and you just don't know it. And it's like, I'm at the mild end of the spectrum, and I know a lot of you dumbasses don't agree that I'm at the mild end of the spectrum, but guys, you're fucking wrong and naive. I am at the mild end of the spectrum. If you think I am shockingly far low functioning autistic, then guys, you're in for a shock, my friends. Sorry, you're not friends, you're assholes. But you know, I am at the mild end of the spectrum, so I can to a certain extent consciously make up for things, right? It's like I can't smell, but you know, I wear deodorant, and I can to a certain extent be like, you know, if I'm going to be in close proximity to someone, maybe I won't, you know, eat the garlic. You know, there are things that I can do to try and help consciously, despite not being able to detect this stuff, right? You know, I can you know, try to, you know, fart discreetly, or have the, you know, the fart smells, you know, waft away. I can use deodorant. I can try not to eat smelly foods. You know, there are things that I can do to try to be conscientious to this world I have no way of perceiving or understanding, yet I know affects other people, and who will in turn come to affect me. I mean, it's not actually quite as bad in the sense that, like, you know, I have a lot better sense of social understanding than I do a sense of smell. But that that sense of a social understanding is a very consciously learnt thing of, oh right, this expression means this this vocal intonation means this, these words when these people say it in this way, in that way, means this when they say it in this context, in this context, and this means this, and that leads to misunderstandings, because some people they don't realize what they're sort of communicating. Like, some people, right? Yeah, they are angry and stuff, right? There is this, like, okay, it's like a mathematical problem, okay? Except you're determining the input values based on what you interpret from other people, and other people can, like, sometimes neurotypical people expect you to pick up on the signals they're giving out, right? And so they expect you to come up with this, answer to the equation, but you're not aware of this. And sometimes they expect you to come out with a different answer to the equation than the one you have, because they don't think they're giving off certain signals, which they are, or they seem to be, right? They're, some people, okay, in sort of, standard human psychology, right? If you're upset at someone, but you know that voicing your upset could cause them to be upset at you or to react in a way you can't deal with, you might just kind of try to obliquely sort of turn away from the situation and say, no, it's okay, everything's fine, just leave me alone, right? Sometimes the correct response in that situation is to say, no, there is an issue here, let's sort it out, let's work it out together, it's okay, right? I'm not going to explode at you, let's work it out. Sometimes the correct response is to say, no, I understand what's going on here, I'm going to let you have this out because you're not ready, you can't deal with this stuff at the moment. And sometimes there genuinely isn't a problem, they just kind of didn't realize they were giving off these other signals that made it seem like there was a problem that they were trying to cover up, right? When you don't know this sort of stuff instinctually, you have to make conscious calculations, and sometimes you get the calculations wrong, right? And it's like, is that person mad with me and trying to be polite, or am I just mixing up my signals and misinterpreting it? And my everybody is different. That's the thing. Everybody is different. You have to learn how other people think and operate, because the fact that there is no set of rules means that there is no firm understanding of what the heck social skills are, what the social expectations are. And at the same time, yes, there are a whole different bunch of social expectations, depending upon class, depending upon race, depending upon culture, right? There is all this different stuff that's going on, and it's like, if you're an autistic person, trying to navigate all this stuff is so fucking tricky, right? And yet at the same time, this is why autistic people are among some of the most, accommodating and tolerant of new sexual identities and new gender identities and what have you, because it's like, sure, normal people are mad enough as it is, fuck it, right? It's crazy enough, just like understanding the way sort of, gender is operating at the moment, just the kind of the two genders that are accepted in heteronormative society. And if heteronormative, if using that term is upsetting you, if you feel like, you know, you want to scream at me now because hashtag triggered bro, then fair enough, right? That's kind of an example here of how, like, you know, even neurotypical people can feel overwhelmed by something new, right? If you're an autistic person, everything has to be consciously worked out. Everything. And it's like, you know, in this day and age, just dealing with kind of men and women and not even just, you know, setting aside for the moment that there are people who identify as Zia, and, you know, that there is such a thing as gender fluidity and intersex and all this stuff, like setting all that aside, just men and women, like you have this whole thing of, like, you have male traditionalists, then you have, you know, the counter male movement of the sort of the lads, and then you and then you have the sort of the metrosexuals, and then you have, you know, the people who are like who are the male feminists, who are just, you know, dickheads trying to saying they're feminists because they want to not be killed, or men who are dickheads but say they are feminists because they're scared of feminists and they want to date feminists. And then there are men who are feminists because, no, seriously, they've like read academic papers on feminism, and like they will hold you to task and say, so tell me why you're interested in microcilia and in vor, and why in fact you are in fact a misogynistic bastard. And, you know, with women, you know, you've got the traditionalists, you've got this, you know, the sex positivists, you've got those who are fine, you know, sort of accepting, hey, you know, we've all got a different, you know, sexualities and whatever, and kinks and what have you, so people can be fine doing whatever they want, but just, you know, be safe and consensual, everybody. And then you've got the people who are sort of equally kind of feminist, but they are more sort of authoritarianly feminist, and they're like, no, if you are not abiding by the standards of treating women that I personally think are right, even if under safe and consensual circumstances, then you are evil, good sir, you are evil. And it's like, all this stuff is going on in just these two groups, and even that is a drastic oversimplification, because that is failing to take into account, you know, intersectionality. Because, you know, what are the differences between, you know, being a white person and an Asian person and being a black person? And you know, what about if your ancestors come from this specific kind of culture and that specific kind of culture? And what if you're an English person in Wales or in Scotland? And it's like, nothing is easy in social understanding, right? And autistic people, you know, if you can navigate in the world at all through socializing and you're autistic, you constantly have to be going this, and I have to do this, and I have to do that, and anytime there's a person in the room, I have to be thinking about that, and then kind of people will just drop landmines on you and say, oh, by the way, what about this whole entire different domain of social expectation that you didn't know about before? Yeah, pay up. And it's like, what? What the fuck's going on? Right, and I'm high functioning. Like, I know someone he's a good guy. Great guy. Honestly, he's brilliant, and like he's a genius at computers, and just he cannot deal with people, because it's just like, you are this great big box of the unknown, and you judge, and I don't want to upset you because you matter, so I'm just going to stay over here and not talk to you because you're just complicated, and I can't deal with that. And I swear to fuck, I am understanding more and more that idea of just like, neurotypical people, you are insane. Because neurotypical culture is constantly evolving and getting more complex, and there are so many more ways that people can be offended. People can be offended if you say you're worried about offending people. Right? If you say, hey, I don't want to upset people, people will be like, well, why are you worried about being upset? What are you talking about? Are you a filthy SJW? It's like, no, I just don't want to upset people. What the fuck are you doing? And then it's like, if you make mistakes and, hold on. Neurotypical people are just such hard work. Such completely and utterly hard work. And then you wonder why we don't go outside more. Why we don't engage more. Why we don't be like neurotypical people more. Because we don't understand neurotypical behavior, because it's so complicated and it's constantly updating and changing all the time, and it's never clarified. There are no simple set of rules to learn. It's all unwritten, all having to be intuited. And people get so very, very angry. So very, very angry. And it's always on us to understand. We're always the problematic people. Because we don't get your constantly changing and shifting society. We have to understand you. You don't even begin to try to understand us. And it's hell. It's hell because it is a constant form of utter disregard for how we think. We have to change to suit you. You don't give a shit about us. And I was reading last night. I've been reading this book called Neurotypicals by Steve Silverman, and it is such a difficult book for me to read as an Asperger's person, because what it just highlights is time and time again, neurotypical people fail to understand autistic people, and in response they make the autistic people suffer. Obviously there is the case of all these desperate parents who try to help their children by bankrupting themselves, paying for all this expensive treatment, trying to cure their autistic children. Children are dying because neurotypical people can't bear the thought of neurotypical children. So it honestly, to a certain extent, it doesn't even fucking matter that the science behind it is bullshit and that it was revealed as a scam. What matters to me as an autistic person is that, mothers and fathers are literally choosing to let their children die, to let adults die of these, renewed preventable diseases, because they are terrified of their children being autistic. And that's them being caring. And the scariest thing for me is that, I didn't understand why everybody was obsessed with my autistic people or the superior beings video. Why was that so? Why did that ignite everything so much? Why did it? And then last night I read this chapter, which, begins nice enough, talking about Hans Asperger and how he, first sort of came to diagnose the autistic people, and, there are a couple of phrases that stuck out as and that made me sort of begin to make more sense of myself, right? Like the fact that he noticed that autistic people, they struggle to, a lot of autistic people, they waffle. They talk on and on and on, and they have, sentences that run on into other sentences and other sentences and what have you. And that they are not good with pronouns, and that's very much sort of me. And there was this phrase that stuck out to me, which was, constitutionally unable to take things on faith. That's me. Constitutionally unable to take things on faith, and that's probably why I feel like I'm so screwed at the moment. Because, my family keeps telling me things will be okay, things will be okay. But I'm constitutionally unable to take things on faith. I rely on evidence. And the evidence I'm reading so far says we're screwed. But then it goes further in a way that makes me understand, which is that, you see, Asperger worked at a clinic for children in Vienna, in Austria. And this was happening in around about, the 1920s. Austria. And a bunch of American eugenicists spoke about these ideas for how they believed scientifically mankind could take the reins of his own evolution. And then a certain chap sitting in prison took in that American eugenics research, and he would come to use it as the basis for his horrific acts upon the world. And that man's name was Adolf Hitler. Adolf Hitler, of course, who came from Austria. And so the book details how slowly Nazism starts to simmer. How these people who are involved in this profession begin to embrace Nazi ideology. How disabled children are killed. How the doctors gleefully partake in this. Until Führer, until Hitler, great bastard, turns up in Austria again, and all these doctors who were supposed to help all of these children, including Hans Asperger, were then turned to the service of killing autistic people, killing basically any child who was deemed annoying or troublesome or anything like that. And that a large amount of, some widely regarded textbooks that were used for more than 60 years were in fact made from the flayed bodies, well, not made from, but that all this, research and scientific illustrations was done using the flayed bodies of disabled children and political prisoners. see, you know, it's as the title of the last, you know, video of autistic or superior beings, you know, that came from the Daleks, right? And the Daleks were sort of the British take on the Nazis as the ultimate villain, as a kind of comic villain, right? I suppose in this age of privilege, I've generally regarded myself as immune from this sort of stuff. You know, I'm a white English guy. You know, like, yeah, there are a bunch of assholes who saying, "Oh, I can't pronounce your name, it's stolen." But no, I'm English, right? And yeah, I'm bisexual, but I've lived so much of my life as heterosexual, it's not something that generally doesn't strike me as a problem. And, you know, obviously I knew that, you know, the Nazis pretty much killed everyone, right? It's not a shock to me that the Nazis killed autistic people. It's a shock to me that even as autism was just being codified as a thing that people have, that the very person who codified and discovered autism was himself going around being part of the bureaucratic machinery, killing autistic children, and that these autistic children, they were killed in really violent, brutal, slow, horrific ways. And the thing is, I know that this book would have been, to some measure, you know, sparing the reader the graphicness and the horror, you know, because the Nazis are, you know, genuinely are about as close to evil as the human race is ever likely to get, or at least as close as I think I should ever like to come to understand humanity getting. And the fact that from the very beginning, from the very inception of the diagnosis of autism, that the very founder of autism himself was involved in the violent killing and persecution of autistic people. Yeah, and so now I understand why Nazis have been obsessed with me. Because what is Dalek phrasing, if not Nazi phrasing, parodied? By saying autistic people were the superior beings, I was unknowingly calling out to the Nazis saying, "Hey dumbasses, you're next." And I didn't know I was saying that. I didn't. You know, I've been operating under the delusion for some time that actually the vast majority of the people who follow my videos are just trolls. They're just doing it because it's a joke, because ha ha ha, you know, isn't it so funny? Isn't it so funny if you're a fucking moron who thinks this sort of thing is funny, right? You know, it's like this idea that, you know, that so many gamers have spent so much time, you know, being trained to fire at the glowing weak spot, that when they see a woman feminist, they cannot help but say something sexist because, ooh, glowing weak spot, right? Except I don't think it's that simple anymore. I don't think it's that simple at all. Autistic people are oppressed. And they have been oppressed since the very fucking beginning. And now we face a neo-Nazi in the White House, the possibility of a neo-Nazi in France, and a neo-Nazi sympathiser in Britain. And of course I'm being stalked by Nazis. So yeah, I meant the phrase autistic people are the superior beings in a jokey way, in a you're all a bunch of dickheads, aren't you, for oppressing us sort of way. But I mean the phrase neurotypicals are the inferior beings in kind of a quite literal way, because you oppress and you oppress and you oppress and you fail to understand, and yet all you ever want us to do is to understand you, to adapt ourselves to be what you want us to be. You know, all these bright and shining autistic children who are being subjected to bullshit program after bullshit program by parents desperate that their children conform and conform and conform to an ideology, to a way of being that is literally outside their way of thinking. You know, I've been thinking for a while now that I feel like an alien among humanity, because I will say the words and I don't understand how we can be speaking the same language and get so many things wrong. I understand now. I understand that neurotypical culture is built on all this stuff that you won't even begin to write down and explain, and yet you will mistreat and abuse and criticize anybody who does not abide by these rules you won't even bother codifying, right? Because the thing is, right, at least in a fascist society, there are rules written out as to the right way to be. There are no rules written out as to the right way to fucking be in society. Right? And so often I see people going, why don't you look? So often I see people who are criticizing autistic people going, well, I never look people in the eyes and stuff. It's like, has anybody ever actually told people that they need to look people in the eyes? I mean, yes, I know of seriously autistic people who have been told this stuff, but it's like we only bring in the experts to explain in the severe cases. Right? I really feel like we don't necessarily need all this oppressive bullshit. What we just need is for all you neurotypical idiots to get together and to write down what the fuck are these social fucking skills. What the fuck is, what the fuck body language mean? What the fuck does this intonation mean? What the fuck does that mean? If you're from this context and that context, what does it mean there? And what does it mean that? Like there are so many books on neurotypical people trying to deal with autistic people, but there are not enough books for autistic people trying on how to help them deal with and understand neurotypical people. Neurotypical people are the inferior beings because they are so arrogant and they are so oppressive, and it does not even fucking occur to them that people think differently, and so therefore they should be fucking considered. You know, I know people who work in the psychiatric industry, who work with autistic people, and they are shockingly bigoted towards autistic people. And it's just, this is the world we live in. So yeah. Anyway, I'm gonna do some other stuff. So yeah. Thank you for watching my main channel. Please remember to leave a like, favourite and comment. Shout out to the Dislike Club. Subscribe if you like what you saw, and share if you know someone who might be interested in the contents of this video. If you would like to help ensure more videos get made, there are a few options available to you. You can whitelist this channel in your adblock software to ensure what ad revenue you provide has a chance of making its way to me. If you sign up to make a regular monthly donation through my Patreon, then you will get to watch a selection of videos available exclusively to my Patreon supporters over at my Patreon page. One-off donations are payable through PayPal, or if that doesn't suit your sensibilities, you can gift items through Steam or Amazon via my public wish lists. Obviously, I don't expect anything, and the vast majority of my videos will remain free and ad-supported. All that remains is to say Trump should be impeached, the genocidal must be stopped, and institute universal basic income now.